I was hoping you could talk about some of the legislative efforts that have been successful over the past couple of years
Right.
that you're particularly happy with.
First of all, I'm not on an Eagle trip, but let me tell you about my own.
Mhm.
I decided to get involved with a group who's putting together a rehab facility, and it's called Into Action Recovery. And the group is going to have a system whereby if you go to the detox, then you go to the rehab, they go beyond the rehab. They're almost going to be like the Glenn Sheehan house, whereby there's no clock running on the recovery. I don't mean you can stay there for 3 years, but you can stay there longer. And they predict that they're going to have a tremendous success rate. Some of them are affiliated with a hospital now, Situate Hospital. If I'm going too fast, I'll stop. And some of them are nurses, and even one of the attorneys from the hospital is involved. And what I did was, they went on to this fundraising situation. They ran a couple of fundraisers. They raised $50,000, $60,000. I said, gee, let me see if I can get them a jump start. They thought they needed around 600. And I've gotten one already where we overrode the veto in the budget, which was 200 grand. And I called the governor's office yesterday in that economic development bill. I've got 200 more. And explained to the secretary of, we used to call it the patronage office, but it's the office where, the government relations office. And he used to be a farmer rep. Spoke with him, left word for the governor. Didn't want him to think that just because the session was theoretically over, that we had just forgotten about it. So I called them and talked to them about trying to cement the second 200,000. And if I get that, as soon as I get back, I'm going to add some more money. And they've already been to a bank, and the bank has told them, you've got 400 grand right now, you're in damn good shape. So I put my money where my mouth is. Not just talk about it. A lot of people sit around the table, and everybody's got ideas, but no one knows how to put them into play. This group, that's what impressed me about this group, is different. Everyone I've met at the meetings, some I've known for years, but everyone I've met at the meetings are workers. They want to make this thing succeed. So I thought I'd do my part and not just talk about it. And as I say, 200 definite, probably 200 more looks good, and then I'll keep funding this. And this is a facility that's going to be run by people who've gone through the 12-step program. So this should be a very successful operation. I spoke with the speaker and some of the other legislators when that major opioid bill that we have in the House and the Senate and the governor, it's a collective effort, was going through. And I was involved to the extent where I supported it, called about it all the time, and was glad to see it become law. A guy, but he injured his leg, and he has to take painkillers. With the new rules and regs that we put into effect, he's had a hard time getting what he needed. And I think we've since corrected it. But you don't think of those things when you're voting or supporting a bill, and you say, let's just limit it. There are people, even the physicians say this, who need it. They need that painkiller. And I spoke to a physician on his behalf, and a lot of them are just afraid to cross the threshold. But I think we've addressed that problem, and we'll make it available to people who have a very serious problem. You know, I'm not lecturing to you, it's like preaching to the choir. I never realized how serious a problem it was until about a year or so ago. You know, you saw all these funerals and wakes, and these were people with that problem, and there was no end in sight for them. And as I said, I think we've made some progress. And this group from primarily Tewksbury, who wants to put this facility together, they know from once they speak, I think this is going to go a long way, especially in this area. I also went to that film that the Wahlbergs put together, funded by Mark Ginsburg from Tewksbury, and then asked permission if we could show it at the State House so that the other legislators would see it and maybe bring it back to their districts. So I partnered with a Boston rep, and we brought that into the State House, and it was well received. And I'm guessing, I haven't asked, but I'm guessing there's been some requests for that film already. And then the municipal naloxone bulk buying program. They can now buy in bulk. Before it was very expensive. So some of the other things we've done, work to remove the female drug patients in state jails, and we placed them in the proper treatment facilities. Expanded the insurance requirements to ensure that treatment is covered, including that under Mass Health. And Mass Health is the big umbrella for a lot of folks in the Commonwealth. And we've made more beds available by working with private and public hospitals. And that's where I think that interaction recovery comes from. And make use of public hospital and state healthcare facilities with available space for treatment. And a few years ago, we got a call from the probation officer at the Woolman Courts. And he asked if we could make some beds available in some of the treatment centers. Way back, that was like 5 years ago. And a collective group of legislators, a bunch of us, made sure the money was put into the budget. And to the best of my knowledge, that program has still been ongoing all these years. But that was initiated by the court officers, the probation department, at the Woolman Hospital. The guy who really spearheaded that was Tommy Golden. Mm-hmm. He really pushed that. But, you know, I voted for the appropriation and what have you, and talked about how important it was. And this is the least important part. I was there for the ribbon cutting. It meant something to me. And, of course, I got everything that goes on in that hospital very jealously, because I just want to make sure that we don't overlook what its original purpose was. Original purpose was a geriatric hospital and a mental health hospital. And we've got that kind of population there. We're now involved into the drug aspect. I remember when we put a methadone clinic at the hospital, a lot of controversy, but we did it. Methadone, detox, rehab, but the thing that I'm most proud of, and I'm not responsible for, the person who probably started this years ago has been long dead, is a program like the Glenn Sheehan program. And don't let anybody tell you the programs are similar. The success rate at that Glenn Sheehan program is going to be way up there. There's a lockup facility on the grounds too. And this isn't so much drugs, it's just crime and people who've got some mental problems too. Tell you the one about the doctor, and we took care of her, and that's one of the success stories. I do get a lot of calls, people who are looking for a placement, and we try to help accommodate them. And the good thing now is there are a lot more beds than there were. And I think at Tewksbury we're about to put maybe 15 more beds at Tewksbury. I'm still not satisfied with one of those programs, and I can't say that enough. As long as it's working, that's fine. Because of the community, we need some security. But to get back to some of the stories, well, I've had mothers call me, and one I remember that I'll never forget. This woman from Tewksbury had a daughter. She was very active in all the programs at the high school, all the athletic programs, and her daughter was too. And we kept getting her daughter into rehab, and the mother and father couldn't have done more. They were terrific, and got her into rehab. Just when you thought she was going to make it, we got a call saying she had disappeared that weekend. They found her on a Monday morning at a cemetery in Mattapan, dead, OD. And with these programs that we're trying to get there beforehand, and at that time, one of the problems was a lack of beds. But we were always able to get a bed. But as you know, I can only imagine fighting this addiction. I've met the nicest people who got into it by accident and just so dependent on it. And I'm just hoping things go well.